Sure. Hi, Bob.
All right, thank you, Sean. Welcome everyone to the Open Wallet Foundation Wallet Interoperability Special Interest Group call for September 29th, 2025. Today on the agenda, we will hear about ID Solutions Journey and Vision. Thank you so much, Emily Bennett, Pablo Arribas, Pablo Romeo, and Dimitra Raleigh, so much for joining the call. Really looking forward to your presentation. We are recording this call. It will be posted on the meeting page later today. We are following the Linux Foundation antitrust policy and the Open Wallet Foundation Code of Conduct. And let's see, are there any announcements before we get started? I know we've got IW coming up that the community is gearing up for, as well as a developer summit around IW and the agentic workshop the day after IW. Sean, it looks like you've got your hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Shar. As Shar mentioned, this is being recorded and will be shared on the OWF YouTube Wallet Interoperability SIG playlist. The ACA-py call for this week, which is scheduled for tomorrow, has been canceled due to the holidays. And the VCX community call is this Wednesday. I will put the link and time in chat in a moment. And that was it for me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Stephen, looks like you've got your hand up.
Yes, big announcement yesterday, or big news yesterday, was the referendum in Switzerland that passed. So that was the challenge to the Swiss EID Act. And evidently it was, I was talking to someone from Switzerland today that said it was quite a dramatic day yesterday, that it was the closest referendum in some time. It was a mere 21,000 votes between the yes and the no, but the yes carried. So the Swiss EID project will continue forward. So that's exciting news and interesting feedback on the overall efforts going on. As well, yesterday was the deadline for objections to DID-WebVH at the DIF, for it becoming a DIF recommended DID method. And so it looks like that will become, DID-WebVH will become the first DID method recommended by DIF. So a new program that they put out. And so that's another step forward. Interestingly, that's also what the Swiss EID stack includes, is DID-WebVH.
Awesome. Yeah, that's huge news and really important for our community and group. So thank you so much for reporting on that. And I think we'll want to have more discussion on that in upcoming calls, and have folks particularly involved in that space to come talk about it. I know we had Michelle Saley speak on this a few months ago, and yeah, we'll do more reach out to see who else we can have come discuss that. So big news. Thank you, Stephen. All right, let's see. We also have an announcement about a leadership change for the wallet interop SIG. Stephen Curran is stepping down as co-chair, and Bo Harold is stepping into a co-chair role, along joining Sean and myself. And Stephen, we have valued your leadership so much. Your thoughtful questions and observations and community outreach has really helped this space to be a place where fruitful conversation about interoperability and progress in this community has happened. And you navigated this group from the Aries working group to the interop SIG, and your continuity of leadership there was really key. And we have just massively appreciated everything you've brought to this community and everything you've contributed here. We hope to see you still as an attendee, and really always value your thoughts and considerations and expertise. So is there anything you wanted to share, Stephen?
That was over the top, Shar. Thank you so much. Much appreciated. I'm glad I could help, but you've really been carrying the load recently, and you and Sean, and really appreciate all that you're doing in building this. And Bo, welcome aboard, and I think you're going to do a fantastic job. I'm really enthused to have someone from the European side of the ocean working on this and leading, helping to lead the conversation. And I know you'll do a fantastic job, and really appreciate you stepping forward. Go
Well
ahead, Bo.
said.
Well, thank you for those kind words, and thank you for seeing that I might be able to bring something to the party. Obviously, I'm not a technical expert, but I have worked for this since the early days of self-sovereign identity and trust over IP, and I'm very much engaged on a daily basis with what is happening in Europe, and obviously through FinDinet in very practical implementation of credential flows. So that's what I can bring to the party. I hope that will be useful. But of course, Stephen and you and the others, I'm sure will be around in these meetings also from here onwards. Thank you.
Absolutely.
And by the way, Bo, we met 6 years ago last week, I suspect. Pretty sure at My Data in Helsinki 2019. You and I chatted at the outside a session and had a good discussion. So glad to see you. You're still here and I'm still here enjoying or working hard on the problems we're trying to solve.
Absolutely. Yeah, but we are really excited to have you stepping into the
Thank you.
co-chair role.
I missed the previous input here. There was something wrong on the line, but can you repeat it so that I know what was said?
I was reminded that My Data was last week in Helsinki,
Yes,
and
of
we
course.
met 6
Yes.
years ago at My Data was when
Yeah,
we
that's what it was.
stood together outside of a session one of us had talked at and had a good discussion. So great to transition 6 years later.
Yes, of course, my data principles are enshrined in the European legislation, but now we need to get my data to become more real, making it happen, meaning that getting the credentials to the live events. So I'm not totally happy with the practical approach of my data now, but I'm pushing as hard as I can.
Excellent.
Absolutely. And Bo, you've been already such an active and important member of this SIG for a while. So we're really excited for your leadership and the ideas and perspective you're bringing, your EU perspective. We've talked about focus on organizational wallets and theme-specific ecosystems. And yeah, just really looking forward to having you on board. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Great. Let's see, I want to make sure we still have plenty of time for the presentation so we can quickly just see if are there any project updates that anybody wants to call out or any final announcements?
Just a quick word, both ACA-py, Credo, lots of work going on, moving things forward on both projects. No particular highlights to ring out this week, but so many people contributing on a daily basis. It's good to see them moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of good stuff going on. All right. With that, I will relinquish the screen share and I will pass it over to the UNICC team. Thank you again so much for joining us. Really looking forward to it.
Thanks a lot for the warm welcome. Pretty excited to also hear about ACA-py and Credo updates, since that'll become, well, it already is relative to the work we're doing, but you'll see a little bit more about that in the slides we have coming up. Myself, Dimitra Rally, Pablo Romeo, Pablo Arribas have joined to walk you through some of the work that UNICC has done in digital wallets, leveraging components from Open Wallet Foundations. We're quite grateful for that, and also Linux Foundation Decentralized Trust. I'm gonna share my screen, including a PowerPoint to walk us through, and I'll invite my colleagues to also share in presenting with me. Let me just go on slideshow mode so you guys can see well. All right. So we've been building and scaling ID solutions for the UN and governments for a number of years. Somebody mentioned 2019 timeframe. That's about when we started on our journey of building different solutions and products. So glad to hear some folks have been in it for midterm with us, or maybe even longer. Glad to present to what may become a community of friends, so to speak, and hope to be more interactive in this community going forward. Let me see if we can move to the next slide. Just a second. Oh, there we go. Wait a second. Sorry for the logistical challenges. There we go. All right, so a couple personal introductions. I'm Emily. I had digital public solutions at UNICC. It's much wider than just digital wallets or ID or digital credentials, but we look over lots of different solutions having to do with our work with and through UN entities and for the programs we're serving and for the public interest. Dimitra Rally is with us as well. She's not going to be presenting, but she does lead the team in our digital delivery center. And so the digital ID team is under her purview. Pablo Arribas will walk you through a couple of the digital ID solutions UNICC has built. He's a solutions architect and the ID team lead. And Pablo Romeo will also share some insights, particularly on the country level solutions that we have brought to life and are continuing to evolve later in the presentation. I figured I would just spend a couple minutes to tell you about UNICC because perhaps some of you guys haven't heard about us before. We'll tell you about the journey that we're taking on digital ID over a couple of different products and how that's evolved since 2019. And then spend just a couple minutes to wrap it up on UNICC's ID vision, i.e. what we would like to do for our products development, and then what we're doing for the ethos around DPI, specifically in civil registration and identity, but slightly wider as well. Who we are. High level, we are a shared service provider within the UN system. Practically, it means that we're very concentrated on scaling solutions, meaning either providing shared solutions or providing replicable solutions, so i.e. products that can be duplicated for different use cases. And so DPI for us is quite a big focus. We've started our journey about 54 years ago. We were created by a General Assembly resolution around sharing of a mainframe computer. Resources can be scarce, especially now more than ever. So we need to look for ways to be more efficient and to share resources and to share knowledge. And so UNICC is a place where UN entities have been doing that for 54 years. And moreover, find it useful in terms of serving their programs and projects to leverage that kind of DNA and the replicable nature of different types of products for various use cases. So our work around ID is very demonstrative of that evolution of knowledge and evolution of applicability of products, different products. Why are we concentrated on public solutions? Particularly, you heard me mention we were kind of a shared service provider to the UN. Well, a couple years ago, probably a year and a half, 2 years ago, the UN member states adopted something called the Global Digital Compact. So perhaps you guys might be familiar with this, or maybe a document called the Pact for the Future. So the Pact for the Future essentially outlines many different ways that the UN entities can accelerate the ways in which they address the Sustainable Development Goals, which are nearly upon us as it's the goals to 2030. And within that context, digital is a notable accelerator. So there's actually an annex to the Pact for the Future that's called the Global Digital Compact. And that's particularly looking at technology accelerators to be able to tackle some of the world's largest challenges. And in a lot of ways, that can be addressed with digital public infrastructure, i.e. ID, payments, data sharing, and digital public goods, government services, use case specific technologies that can be replicated in a variety of different contexts. Things like farmer registries, and health and healthcare, sanitation, education, these types of public solutions, public goods. Why? Driving innovation, collaboration with open source. DPI and DPG are open source by nature, open source by default. So that generally leads to a more innovative way of working. Increase in opportunities, increase in mean time to deploy, decrease in mean time to deploy solutions and scale them moreover. And generally, faster time to empower societies. So bringing services to individuals, making services more traceable and more transparent. And how do we do this? Innovative solutions. So for a long time, UNICC has been leveraging open source as a means by which we build products, simply because the sustainability factors are much, it's much more resource efficient and economical. Never mind the consideration of ownership and management over a long period of time. They can be scalable, i.e. DPG or DPI, also in consideration of shareability. UN for a long time has this construct of multi-organizational sharing. So many organizations sharing a single solution. Benefits are not just in terms of replicability, but organization of similar business processes across different organizations. So somehow leading to better harmonization. That notwithstanding, UNICC has quite some background in terms of orchestrating fit for purpose solutions. So looking at what we've done, looking at what types of customizations need to happen, looking at evolution of a product in order to be more fit for purpose for a given requirement. So our DPI journey, particularly digital identity, is you'll get a flavor of this in the context when we present in just a couple minutes. Our general strategy, this was vetted by our management committee, but really kind of focused in a variety of different areas that are the backbone of digital transformation for the system and for the requirements of the UN. So infrastructure, private cloud, specialized computing. UNICC runs a product called UNICC Cloud, which is an implementation of OpenStack. So supporting the UN and the programs that we're serving with access to a neutral cloud environment built on open source, as well as expanding how we make available specialized computing, especially in the context of AI. Digital tools and platforms, that's where our DPI practice sits, and most of our digital public goods are kind of evolved, generated, deployed from there. Cybersecurity, which is really a wrapper of all that we do. So I mentioned UNICC Cloud, it comes with very strong cybersecurity controls. We leverage cybersecurity for all of the digital tools and platforms we deploy, can be kind of standalone services as well. Sometimes we support organization in the context of digital public infrastructure and goods, just with cybersecurity activities, moving from a kind of prototype or testing into a production implementation, and then what are the cybersecurity considerations, especially when you look at integrations and interoperability. Data and AI services, so building upon digital tools and platforms, now more looking at support and kind of AI hub that we have, which scales access to AI, training and data services to support AI efforts, and then insights, expertise, and training around the whole thing, because change management is a reality for the organizations we're serving, but moreover, when leveraging all of these different components for the purposes of digital public infrastructure and goods, there's a necessity to have a kind of wrapper of empowerment around all of the different solutions. And we do all of this with experience and expertise, specifically in the UN context. We have the UN mandate for shared service delivery. We adhere to similar standards and best practices as you would find in large private sector organizations, so ITIL, ISO certifications and service management, and in cybersecurity and a variety of other awards and best practices. The UN as a whole has a strong say in UNICC strategy and direction. So you see the pillars we have there here. It was in agreement with the way that our community would like us to be serving the UN system, but moreover, their missions and mandates. And we have lots of strategic partnerships with global organizations. More and more, we're solidifying those types of partnerships with different open source initiatives as well, because somehow leveraging open source and looking at it in a very strategic and partnership-oriented way is really the way we need to look at things for building for sustainability for the future. Open source driven, very high digital fluency, since digital is all UNICC does. We're a technology organization serving technology needs for programs and for the UN. We're really quite strong in terms of scalability and productization, and we have a very strong acumen and practice around cybersecurity. We're the largest digital service provider in the UN system, around for more than 50 years. We support a lot of organizations. We're a nonprofit ourselves. So we support nonprofit organizations, development banks, and the UN family. And then we're really focused now on digital transformation particularly, although we have a long history of supporting compute. And so we can really look at digital transformation and what it takes to scale with the context of a strong foundation in understanding compute systems and cloud architectures as well. This is a list of our, or not a list, but a visualization of our clients, and we're globally based. And UNICC has 5 core locations, but we have folks all around the globe that are supporting our clients. I'm going to go a little bit quicker in context to time, and that you guys are probably much more interested in the digital ID solutions. So one of the, just really quickly, because UNICC is a UN entity, we provide, or we have privileges and immunities in our hosting system. So that makes our OpenStack implementation a bit unique in the context of how we serve. We operate on cost recovery. So we are a nonprofit organization. We are a UN organization. So we have a very transparent reporting. We're very mission driven in terms of how we deliver technological solutions and training, including empowerment, including training of constituencies. We serve as a neutral and trusted implementer across the clients that we are serving. And we really encourage local voice and sustainable empowerment. So we really look at what kind of mix we need to put together in order to create long-term sustainability of solutions. I'm going to hand it over to Pablo, who is going to describe a bit more about how we implemented our first ID use case, which is the UNJSPF Digital Certificate of Entitlement. Pablo, please go ahead.
Thank you, Emily. Okay, so let's talk about this project. So we started this solution around 2019, if I'm not wrong. So we need to think of what was the landscape, technological landscape of self-sovereign identity at this time. And we had the ask from the UNJSPF, that is the Joint Staff Pension Fund, which is the organization with the UN that administers the retirement fund of all the UN staff. We are talking about around 130, 140,000 active participants. That means all the employees of the UN organizations, and then around 80,000 beneficiaries, which is retirees of the UN organizations, which would also include people with a benefit that are not retired because they have some disability benefit or widow benefit, etc. But let's think of retirement. Active participants are, for example, us, those of us you see in the call from the UNICC. So this population in the end are all the UN staff that eventually earn a retirement benefit. And the pension fund had the following problem. Of course, this is a very much scattered population across the globe. You see actually live information from the application itself. Of course, we know they are, let's say, more commonly in the US or Europe, etc. But in the end, it's a problem to verify that each of those retirees are still alive and entitled to receive the benefit of the pension. So there was already a process in pension fund, the CE, the Certificate of Entitlement, which entailed sending a letter to each of those beneficiaries that they had to return signed. We can imagine how flawed this process still is there, because of course, to verify that there's no tampering with that process is extremely impossible. So a pension fund came up with this need, and there was the need to verify the identity of each person doing the CE process, which we started calling digital CE process, the liveness to verify that they are still alive and also verify their location at the moment they do the process, and then issue a tamper proof and auditable and preferably immutable, let's say, trace of that operation. So this is when we started thinking of the solution. Can you move on to the next one, Emily? So we at that time had two challenges. One is to do machine learning, computer vision algorithms to recognize somebody's identity. We started thinking on the face. At the time in 2019, of course, there were some technologies. I think one of the biggest breakthroughs was from 2015 from Google. I mean, I'm starting to remember. But the ask from pension fund was that the inference, let's say, so the machine learning match had to be effected on the phone, not on cloud, not using any cloud provider already existing tools that, of course, they existed, and it didn't even need to be affected on our own deployment of the system on the cloud or in the infrastructure. It had to be affected on the phone. So we had to look up for different algorithms to achieve that. And then the other part, of course, was to start to use some settlement identity technologies, because also the senior management of the fund was very interested in this approach and in using blockchain. At that time, we saw, of course, the Hyperledger Indy. We started seeing the Hyperledger areas, especially ACA-py. And we did a pilot proving that at least these two edges, these two ends were possible to be met, let's say, to be resolved. For the machine learning face recognition part, of course, I will skip it because it's not the purpose of this call, I think, even though it's extremely interesting. What we faced at that time was that, yes, we were going to be able to do machine learning inference on the phone, but there was no, at the moment, Aries agent wallet ready to be used in a mobile phone. Or at least that's what we noticed. We, of course, found the ACA-py project, which was extremely helpful for us because that helped us set up all the system for creating verifiable credentials and creating also the customer and the custodian wallets, let's say, the cloud wallets for each of the beneficiaries. So how this process works end to end, in the end, is that the user will do an onboarding into the system where they will prove or verify their identity. They will establish a baseline of their identity. They will submit a picture of their face and also an ID document. And then that request is then approved, managed through a manual process, approved by the UNICC, by the pension fund. When this happens, we are creating already a verifiable credential that certifies that has happened in the ecosystem of in the ledger, and then in the end with the agents. We have actually two issuing agents in the system, one that creates this verifiable credential of onboarding approved, and a second one that is tasked with creating the verifiable, let's say, or the verified digital certificate of entitlement when that is issued. We then have the holder wallets, which is one for each of the beneficiaries. So all the active beneficiaries will have one. I think we are running actually ACA-py multi-tenancy mode, if I'm not wrong. So in the end, we make the solution scalable. In terms of requirements of scalability and network requests, etc., this process is very much self-controlled, fortunately, even though with some challenges. So let me explain. The CE process, so that is the paper-based certificate of entitlement process, is run for one exercise. The exercise is the natural year. So throughout 1 year, the 80,000 beneficiaries of the pension fund need to prove that they're alive. And they have 3 occasions to do it. That is the paper-based. On the digital one, they just need to do it once. As long as they do it once during the year, then they're going to be paid their pension throughout that year until the next year. So what happens in practice is that the users will do it at the beginning of the year. We have right now, after I think 4 years of operating the solution after go live, 45,000 beneficiaries who are active in using the solution. So that is around 50%. We know that given the age of the population and the digital literacy and savviness, of course, not everybody is going to be willing to use a mobile app to verify their identity and liveness. We're happy with that. The pension fund has created the solution as optional to the existing CE process, the paper-based, and everybody's happy with that. So we know that it's around 50%, maybe in the future, 60% of beneficiaries that will use this. Now, what happens is that they all do the process in January. So we just need to take all the requests, all those 40-something thousand requests in the first 2 or 3 weeks of the year. And that has, in fact, created some scalability issues in the past. But for the most part, they're resolvable, and we didn't find major problems. Then regarding the technology, it's very simple. As I said, we're using ACA-py, we're using Hyperledger Indy. We are running, I think, if I'm not wrong, around 8 nodes, if not 10, if I'm not wrong. They are distributed across different cloud systems. So in fact, they are distributed across, I think, the 5 continents in a hybrid environment. Some of them are on UNICC's cloud systems, as Emily described, their own proprietary cloud, and others in public cloud providers. So in that sense, even though this deployment is not managed by multiple organizations, unfortunately, it's only within the UNDSPF and UNICC. So it's not purely a distributed, let's say, system in that sense. In the infrastructure part, it is. We have made sure that the resiliency and the scalability of the blockchain is maintained with this hybrid cloud or multi-cloud deployment. Moving on to the next one, Emily. So as we said, we didn't find many choices for identity management. At that time, we wanted to use blockchain technologies. Just to reiterate that the senior management of UNDSPF, our counterpart there, the CIO himself, was very keen on using blockchain because of the auditability features that it has, so that the records are not tampered with and modified. Even though we very clearly explained that creating a verifiable credential to track a transaction is a very specific way of using it, and we understand that, but it seemed very valid. And also that the verifiable credential is not created in the blockchain either. We know it's actually in the wallet of the holder. But in any case, the whole system that is all veering towards immutability and all the cybersecurity, let's say, safeguards that it has, seem much more reliable than just a database where you can track some transaction. This was created also with the intention to potentially expand it in the future with more use cases around that blockchain. We will explain later what happened in the next use case, actually. But I'll leave it there. Then where this is, and also just to know that in the interchange of credentials, that even though it's a self-contained system, we wanted to recreate the whole solution of to do the verification process of the DCE, to do your liveness verification process that you need to do once a year, you need to actually have obtained the onboarding credential. So in that sense, we did code in the process that to issue your DCE, you need to prove that you have the onboarding credential. So we do a verifiable presentation there to obtain your DCE. So in that sense, we did the whole process, and that's how it was coded. Then for the mobile app, our team focuses on using React Native. At that time, we didn't find a suitable, let's say, agent. We do find now with Credo, and we will explain about that in the next solution. And right now, the solution seems very much stable and self-contained. Let's say, regarding the blockchain and regarding the self-sovereign identity, I think it's going to be I think it's going to continue as is. The challenges that we face now is to make the solution robust for post-quantum, let's say, security. That's where we're looking towards in the future. But in terms of interoperability, it seems it's going to be a self-contained solution for the future. So we're very happy with maintaining the current setup of areas, Hyperledger areas, Indy, and on-creds. Let's move on to the next then, Emily. So then came a second opportunity to use these technologies, and this was the UN Digital ID, and this was expanding actually the work that we had done in the UNDSPF DC project, where we had demonstrated, well, we had learned actually about this technology, and we had demonstrated the capabilities that it has. So we know a challenge of the UN, well, it's very much in the news recently, is the huge number of organizations and the fragmentation that can create with the internal processes and actually with the internal staff, as we see cases where the staff moves from one organization to another one in the UN, and every time the data of that staff member, of that employee, needs to be recreated, re-verified, etc., etc. We started to identify that there could be an opportunity to create an ecosystem with interested organizations using self-sovereign identity, and well, call it UN Digital ID. At the beginning, this started more as a way to identify opportunities where sharing data that has already been verified by a specific organization is of use for a specific use case. Just for you to know, there are specific trainings when one starts working for a specific UN organization. There are some trainings that are horizontal to all organizations. To give some more complexity, the fact that they are horizontal doesn't mean that there's only one organization providing that training. No, in fact, there are many organizations providing the same training. And once you have obtained it for one, it is valid in the rest. So that's a complexity that flies in there. However, it's very often that when one staff or employee moves from one organization to the next, they actually need to retake that training that they already took. So that's an opportunity to gain efficiencies by resharing the information. So we started thinking of this project where the seamless way of sharing personal data was something that was seen as an opportunity to gain efficiencies. We started to see that we could build a web of trust in the best sense of the sense of an identity, meaning once you start working with a UN organization, for example, when I joined UNICC, they will verify your family, well, given your family structure, you may be entitled to some benefits, some additional benefits, like for the children, dependents, secondary dependents, etc., etc. So the HR team needs to verify that information for you. You need to provide a lot of documentation. And then if you join a second organization, all that information needs to be re-verified again. So it's really a bit of a waste of time and resources. It could be possible to just rely on one original organization that verifies your info and then take that as valid. And given that there's the process or the trust across the process, because the process is governed through the different UN orgs, to rely on that. So these were the needs, right? To first of all, put the person, the staff member, the employee in the center of the sharing of its own information, something that is not happening at the moment, let's be honest, and surface that information towards towards the staff member, and then rely on organizations that have already provided the information or verified the information for the staff members so that it doesn't need to be re-verified. So can you please move on to the next one, Emily? So in the end, there was a first POC that was affected for this. This was back in 2020 with the World Food Program, some staff members in the World Food Program who had been actually very much involved in the UNGSP FDC project also. They started thinking of what if to log in on a specific website that is common to all UN staff. There's a specific website where if we need to make let's say a business trip to another location, we need to make a travel request, as it is called. And this goes to the whole United Nations Department of Safety and Security, where they assess the location you're going to visit and all the security considerations. We can all imagine that it's not the same to visit Geneva or New York than other locations where there might be open conflicts. So all this process happens through a request that you need to make there. And of course, to log in there, instead of using our own, let's say, authentication system backed with some very well-known organization, public company, why not just use UN Digital ID with information provided by your own organization? So we made a POC, and for this, what we did is very simple. In the end, use ACA-py to create verifiable credentials, use a mobile app with Credo. At the time, I think it was Happy Ledger Aries JavaScript, to then accept and hold those credentials and then run a verifiable presentation with a client website. Very simple, it was just a POC. Then we integrated that in the if you can move on to the next one, Emily, I think it's in the next slide, we see that it was integrated, in fact, into the login of the UNDSS website in the dev environment, of course, not in production. And you can see here the mobile app that we had at the day. It really looks very much a POC. And it was successful. Actually, we were able to do it. This was presented on a specific innovation challenge across UN, and actually it won the award for the most innovative solution. We need to give credit to the British Columbia government, and I know there are some people in the call because we really were very much inspired by their open source solutions. So we didn't use the code as an open source app. This gave us taught us a bit of a lesson on open source. So sometimes you just don't use the code, but you use it to see how the solution can be solved, right? Or can be built. So we need to give credit where it's due. Let's move on to the next one, Emily. So in the end, the UN Digital ID was established as it evolved after the POC, and it evolved as a fully fledged project with a specific governance model. I would say quite complex. Dimitri would be able to explain much more in detail, but I will just go very quickly. So it is participated by, at the moment, 6 organizations. I would say some of the bigger ones across UN. So I will say them, maybe you will not catch them, but it's the United Nations Development Programme, the High Commissioner for the Refugees, UNICEF, the Secretariat, the World Food Programme, and UNICC. I'm not sure if I skip any of them. And we know there are more organizations that want to join the program right now. So how does it work? In the governance of the consortium, what is agreed are the use cases that are going to be implemented. Okay, so we know that in the end, we need to generate pipelines for creating data in the form of verifiable credentials for the employees of the UN, but then this data needs to find opportunities to be used in specific use cases. So there needs to be an agreement on what use cases are implemented. Then once the use cases are agreed on, we, the UNICC core, let's say, digital ID team will deliver the technology to make that possible. But in the end, the organizations will need to do their own integration. So just to put it simply, we will deliver, and we have delivered already, a mobile app for the UN Digital ID, of course, a blockchain that is Hyperledger Indy. Also, what is called in ACA-py terms, a business controller, let's say an ID manager, let's call it that way as we call it, that is then a web manager with a specific set of APIs to govern the creation of verifiable credentials and manage the whole verifiable credentials lifecycle from a perspective of another systems, let's say from an ERP or an LMS that is going to integrate into the UN Digital ID system. But in the end, the use cases, they need to integrate their own systems into the UN Digital ID. The principle that we follow is always that the governance of the use cases is more, let's say, is not covered by the technology, it's covered by the process of the governance of the project itself. And then once it's agreed on, as I said, organizations integrate. But then the source of truth of the data about the staff member is always on the organization system. The UN Digital ID does not intend to create a separate, let's say, repository of information of UN staff. It's just, it intends to harmonize that and put it in the user's hand, in the staff member or employee hands to give visibility. Other things that actually are achieved throughout this project is 2 basic problems that are underneath the whole ecosystem. One is data harmonization. So once we start defining a use case, and we will see a couple of them later, we need to identify, okay, what is going to be the vocabulary, what is going to be the context, meaning what are going to be the credentials, what are they going to look like? So if there is a credential which is called staff information that details the staff, for example, current job title, the current grade, type of the contract, etc., that verifiable credential, that schema is going to be the same for all of them. So how we operate this is at the moment that the UNICC creates the schemas, and then all the organizations create the credential definitions so that there is a harmonization in terms of the data. Of course, they have the possibility to create their own schemas for their own use cases. So in the future, if World Food Programme was to use the UN Digital ID system to create their own use cases, they can do it. The technology is there, the possibilities are there, but the governance across the data is done in that way. And that's extremely challenging, I can say that, but when it's achieved, it's quite beneficial. Because think of processes like interagency movement, which is one of the use cases that we run, where a staff need to transfer from one organization to another. The current problem that we have is that I mentioned 6 organizations, but in fact, there are more than 40 organizations across UN. But looking only at the 6 organizations, if we need to have interfaces between each and one of them, point to point, the problem is unmanageable. If we unify and harmonize the process of transferring info and make it distributed, but at the same time harmonized, then the process, let's say, can be technologically solved, and that's what we're doing. The other thing we are achieving with this is to surface data discrepancies and to try to do a data cleansing. So it is very funny. We are doing already the UVT of specific use cases, and we start to have the IT teams of the different organizations running a specific process with their own data. And then they start saying, oh, my wife's name here is not correct, and my children's date of birth is not correct, etc., etc. And then we start to see, well, that's what you have in your ERP. So you are already seeing, just even at UVT, a user validation testing phase, that the information that some organizations have is not the most up-to-date. And that's a common problem. If you are an employee, sometimes you will change your address to another location, you just move to another home, and you don't take care of just updating your records in your ERP system of the organization. So we are helping surface data that is not correct, and we are actually putting it in the hands of the let's say the interested person, is the staff itself, himself or herself, for them to resolve. Let's move on to the next one. We only have 3 to go, and in just some time,
I think we're going to have to move really quick because we want to go through the country implementation. Maybe we can spend 30 seconds here and then turn it over to Pablo Romeo.
Sure. So in this one, the current technology is we have put the system more up to date. We're still using ACA-py, of course. We're still using Indy, but in this case, we are using the wallet in the mobile app. We are using Credo, of course, and we are so happy with the technology. Just to say that, and for Animo and all the contributors to be doing an excellent job. It's very important for us to selective disclosure, given that the processes that we are creating are not always going to use all the data of the staff member. So I think that's the most important one. Over to you, Emily.
Thanks. Let's see.
I think it's 2 more.
We're still on digital ID here, but maybe we can zoom past this and start talking about the country implementation in respect to time. Just to say that where we are now, we're going to continue to look at additional use cases, continue to look at more organizations joining, look at more efforts to harmonize and optimize both UN processes outside of digital ID, but that are dependent or intertwined with digital ID. Pablo mentioned some aspects of data harmonization or cleansing data issues, and really look to increase the value. So showing more return on investment and clearly articulate the value proposition so as to support more organizations and more people in this process. Pablo Romeo, do you want to take it over?
Sure, I will try to go a bit faster. So with the same technology we have been building, and we are building the UN Digital ID, we came up with an initial proof of concept in national deployment in Africa, which was very, very challenging. We see very different things, very different challenges in this environment, because when we talk about this kind of, proof certificate challenges and so on, you are always thinking that you will have a very good internet connection, that you will have a mobile phone that you can use and it's perfect because it will do the right thing. And this is not the case when you come to a place like Africa. We were seeing a lot of challenges around. So what we started working with them to helping them registering users with the current national ID, with this kind of suitcases that you see on that table. We are helping them with that. We are helping them with some offline technology for ID verification that we would love to integrate with this self-sovereign identity wallet that we are building for them. We are working on that, and that's what we are currently doing. So please, Emily, let's go for the next one, and we show what we have done. So this is our wallet for this country. We created for them a national ID that they can just ask for a credential using their national ID. They have an ID card they can use. They can request to a digital ID to be issued for them in their wallet. This is available for them, and they have to go through, and this is an add-on that we don't usually have in the wallet. They go through a biometric verification in the mobile app. not in a backend side, but in the mobile app. Because, as I said, you cannot count on some with internet connectivity at some point. And we also do a liveness verification. So Emily, let's go for the next one. Thank you. So to use this digital ID, we created for them in this POC a mock bank that they could use. We created what you are looking at is a website that we show. I assume almost everybody in this call have seen this QR code, which is a challenge for unknown credits, and we share the information in the credential using that. So what we did here, we created an OIDC bridge in the past for the first project, as Pablo said, that allows us to verify the credentials. This is done for the ACA-py at that point. Next one, please, Emily. Thank you. We created something different that has not to do with the wallet, which is these suitcases that they are working with. We have created for them a registration application, which is getting an identity. So this is a step back, is because a lot of people in this country do not have an identity, not even an ID card, not a passport, not a certificate of birth, nothing. So they are registering a lot of people, and they were looking for some alternate that was not this suitcase, which is very expensive and didn't work well for them. Let's go for the next one, Emily. Thank you. In this case, what we presented is a solution, which is a tablet, an Android tablet that it's capable of registering these people offline. And we're including what I was talking about before, which is this offline verification. We are putting biometrics, identity, and signatures inside a QR code. So everything inside a QR code. In this case, what we are doing, which if anyone is interested, we are not adding the fingerprints or the photo, which is what's inside the QR code, but not the fingerprint of the photo itself, but a hash generated using an AI algorithm. So we can compare that hash to a photo of the person using the same algorithm. We are comparing those hashes. So if anyone gets your information from that QR code for any reason and tries to get the information from your biometrics, that person will only get a hash, will not get a photo, will not get a valid fingerprint that can use. Okay, thank you. Let's go for the next one, Emily. I think that's it. So, and this is what I was talking about. This is the verification thing. So this is the ID card to the country. They have this ID card that's quite expensive for them, for the income for the people of this country, and they wanted to leverage the usage of a verifiable, some kind of verifiable ID. So at this point, as we did not have this standard credential or verification with these offline verification features in the current wallets, we had to come up with something which was what I'm going to show you. Let's go for the next one, Emily, please. Which is this kind of QR code. So we are issuing this type of QR codes. This is a fake one. This is not the real QR code we are using, because it's way more dense than that. It's a QR code that has obviously the hash of the face, the fingerprint, the identity of this person, and it's signed. So it's verifiable by a third party, and it's signed with it can be verified offline, as I said. And moreover, which is easier for anyone, is that this can be sent to anyone and printed to everywhere. You can use a sheet of paper, print it there, and that's a valid ID and verifiable ID. It's not as an expensive ID card like the one you saw before. And I think that's it, Emily, because this is what we are trying to do with them. As I said, we're trying to move this offline verification to something that's compatible with the whole ecosystem of the wallet. That would be great for them, that we can do that for them. Include selective disclosure, which is something that's not in this QR code. We would love to include obviously OpenID WISIG and the whole pack that all of you for sure will know about, and interoperability with other standards, health standards, driving licenses, birth certificates, all of those. So we found a use case which has a specific challenge, which is this connectivity. And I think that's something that is pushing us to the limits and helping us to get something even better of what we already have. And as Pablo said, thanks all the teams, all the efforts that everyone is doing. I see a lot of known names in this call who are working on this. So thank you for all what you're doing. I see a hand raised. Jim?
Yep.
Two things. Well, I like all of the, I'll call it additional capabilities you've added. And when I did a State of Rhode Island digital ID prototype, we did exactly what you're doing with the QR code idea, because we recognize two things. One, the internet doesn't always exist, even in the US, point one. Point two, many people, in my case, 8% out of the entire population at the time, 5 years ago in the state of Rhode Island, didn't have the right digital equipment to actually use a digital system. So you're right about the ID card with the QR code. That solved a lot of problems. The other thing I would ask a question is, one challenge we didn't address and that I don't see other systems addressing, which is even a problem in the US federal government. All governments, believe it or not, hard to believe this, but they do make data errors all the time on PII. And so here's the real problem. Which the US government couldn't solve for me, but maybe you have a solution, is they got PII data wrong for my son. Fair enough. I'm the one that, of course, had to discover it. The systems the government in the US has don't make that easy to do, but of course, I discovered it. Having discovered it, it turned out the issues are they have no idea how to correct it, point one, because their systems didn't design for PII errors. Point two, they also had no idea of, in a sense, exactly where my son's, I'll call it ID data, had been used and consumed, right? So when you find that you have been, in a sense, given, or some, call it the government has created bad data for you, the real issue is not only how do I correct it, but how do I find out where it's been used incorrectly? So just quickly put up the slide that shows me how you fix that one. Thanks.
I was going to
Pablo,
say, yeah, sorry for
yeah,
that.
go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say that I don't think we can fix that, because if this is a sovereign identity, it's distributed by design. Nobody knows where you are presenting your credentials. Nobody. And who are you sending those? So there's not a registry of you have been using your credentials here, there, and there, and there. So I don't think that's easy to, and even if we want to fix that, because that would mean that someone will know where you have shared your credentials. You will, obviously, because it's your wallet. So in your wallet, you may have the list of places where you have shared your credentials, but you may have your credentials in different wallets. Then, not an easy one.
So,
You're right.
so here's the challenge. Look out. I'm going to be proposing GDPR 2. And that'll become a law that everybody will go, oh my God, it happened. He somehow passed this idiot law. Now the world has to comply with it.
So I think it's for Harald next. Yeah.
Yes, well, excellent work that you're doing here. But as you know, in Europe, we are pretty near everyone getting the ID wallets, and Denmark in the beginning of next year. And you have a lot of retired people that reside here, so you can get their identification, and you can get, are they alive or not, where you started, and lots of other things as well. And you can issue them all sorts of credentials. So what you should do soon is this to take in use, and you already have an issuing and verification agent or wallet yourself, so that you can interact with the European citizen wallet and organization wallets, and that is of course, and 120 other countries are on the same route, as you well know, and all that. India is of course very advanced when it comes to getting 800 million people already on board and so forth. Interoperability is the issue, and that's why we are here.
Yes, indeed.
Great work. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we're participating in a few different interoperability forums, and in the last slide, we might have seen we acknowledge that we have a bit of work to do to move towards most current interoperability trends and standards. But notwithstanding, we want to look to the future in terms of being interoperable from a UN perspective, but also interoperable in terms of solutions that we are sharing with countries. Thank you very much for inviting us to present today. It's truly an honor, and I appreciate that we could share our work leveraging many different Open Wallet Foundation projects with the community.
Thank you so much, Emily and Pablo. And Pablo, thank you so much for the presentation. Great to hear about this use case with Indian and Anon-crits. This is so relevant to so many of us on the call. So really appreciate the discussion and presentation today.
Excellent.
Thank you so much. And to everybody on the call, thanks for joining and participating. Join us next week as well to hear about the Digital Credentials API from Tim Kapali of Okta. So join us for that, and stay tuned for more updates. Thanks again so much to the UNICC team this morning, and have a great rest of your day, everybody.
Thanks,
Thank
UNICC team. Thank you, Shar. Thank you both. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.